Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello and welcome to Mary versus the Movies with your host Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should I even ask what that voice is?
It's the 99th episode voice.
Yeah, that's right. This is episode 99. Holy cow, we made it to 99.
98 in a year. Call it even Johnny 99.
What?
98, you know, the Bruce Springsteen song?
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. No, look. It's been a long couple of years. I was going to say it's been a long day. It's been a long couple of years. So, episode 99, we're not going to do like a long reminiscence. That's the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 100 is going to be the 100th episode spectacular. This is just 99.
Yeah.
For this episode, we are going to do a film that I have a bunch of friends who can't believe I've never seen this. And that is the essence of our show. The whole purpose of this show is we watch movies that I've never seen, especially if all of my friends are like, how have you never seen this? To which I say, look, I was a humorless child who lived in a basement.
Nobody could believe you hadn't seen Pretty Woman.
I know, right? My mother couldn't even believe I hadn't seen Pretty Woman. And I'm like, I live with you.
Yeah.
I did live with you. I don't live. Well, we will be living with her soon. But yeah, I know. Right. There are times where people just look at me like, "What were you watching?" To which I say, "I don't know, man. I watched Citizen Kane a lot. I watched a lot of Casablanca. I watched a lot of old movies for some reason."
Did you watch that when you were like 9?
What?
Like Casablanca and
Oh God,
Citizen
before
Kane?
that. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I don't
No.
know. Look, someday on this show, we are going to cover the film Cinema Paradiso. Now, the reason we're going to cover it is, did I see that as a child? I did. Should I have seen that as a child? Probably not, because it went over my head. So, do you know what that is? It's an Italian film. I think it won Oscars and everything. It's considered one of the great movies about movies. Okay, so I would eat up films as a kid
Mhm.
that I had read in different places because I read a lot as a child. You know, I read the newspaper. You know, my parents got a newspaper every day, and this was true basically up through, I guess, when I left for college, and then the media landscape changed. But I always read the newspaper every day. We always got magazines, and there was a lot of Time and Newsweek and stuff like that, or TV Guide, Entertainment Weekly, People Magazine, fine, whatever. But I also watched a lot of television and just followed what people said were important films. And so I watched films that, if it showed up on PBS on a Saturday night, and because I was a dork who was not going out and having fun with other people, I was watching television. I was not getting laid in high school. I was not getting high. I was not doing anything with other people. I watched a lot of movies instead. And so I was very centered on what are the movies that I should know about, right? So I would watch things like and Frankenstein, like all these old movies from the 30s that I thought were great. And I watched a lot of whatever, when AMC became TCM and AMC just became its own thing. I just watched old films all the time. And of course, my mother brought me up on old films. So there's a lot of movies that I just never watched. But I would avoid anything that seemed too popular because I was insufferable. Okay. And if it was popular, I just could not. I'm not watching this. And so I was well into my 30s before I saw Clueless. Clueless was huge.
Did you see Caddyshack?
In college.
Okay.
I finally saw it in college because I was not exactly dating a guy, but we were hooking up a lot.
Yeah.
And he's just like, you got to watch Caddyshack. You got to watch Stripes. You got to watch, basically if it had Bill Murray in it, you got to watch it. So I did. It's definitely a type of guy you meet in college. And he's not wrong. I enjoyed all those films. That's how I think I first saw. No, that's not true. I was going to say that's how I first saw Meatballs, but I saw it on cable. That's not true. Meatballs is great. Yeah. So, no. It's not like I never watched anything that was popular, but somebody had to kind of sit me down and make me watch it. Okay. And actually, and the guy I'm talking about, like, he did expand my movie watching a lot, which was really useful. There's so many movies that we've covered that turned out to be great and that I just avoided because either like I was weird about, I don't want to watch a romance. I don't want to watch people falling in love because nobody likes me because I'm a weirdo. And so I never watched romances and I hated the idea of them. So, you know, here we are in my 40s now and we're watching all these films that I should have watched 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever. And this long introduction is my way of saying today, Vampires. This is episode 99, and we are watching The Lost Boys.
You know what this is?
It is.
It's a vampire weekend.
Oh, God. Man. I walked right into that. Man,
Vampire.
it's like I invited you into my home.
Yeah.
You know?
Never invite vampires in.
Exactly. Yeah, The Lost Boys. So, I don't know who's in this other than Kiefer Sutherland, but I know he's in it. And I know it's about young dudes who get turned into vampires.
Yeah.
I know that there is a shirtless, muscly guy playing a saxophone at one point. Because that's the one clip that everybody wants to show me for some reason. I can't wait to see this in context. But like for whatever reason, everybody's like, oh, you got to see this. And I'm like, oh.
Maybe it'll be like a montage like in To Live and Die in L.A. where it doesn't make any sense at all.
That's,
it just
I'm okay
pops
with
up
that.
on the screen.
I hope that's the case. One thing I was obsessed with as a kid, though, was the story of Peter Pan. Honey, I've never gotten into this with you.
I mean, I sort of knew.
Yeah, no, you probably did, but
we have, what, like 10, 12 books?
Well, okay, I have a lot of copies
Yeah.
because I'm always looking for like the perfectly illustrated version. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
No, I was obsessed with the story of Peter Pan when I was a kid because I hit puberty kind of early. Like, I mean, I'm talking like I had to get a bra when I was 9 type thing and had to like learn to like shave my armpits and stuff. Like I hit puberty really young and I was very tall when I was a kid. So I was not into that because I'm 9, you know, I don't want to deal with this. When I was 10, I started menstruating. I mean, like, yeah, this is kind of on the young side for that, although it's more normal, you know, these days, like, I don't want to get into it, but you know, plastics in the water and everything. I was obsessed with the idea of putting a stop to the whole puberty thing and the growing older thing and having to deal with relationships and like all these things that made me very uncomfortable because I was a very devout Catholic when I was a child. And this is when your life becomes terrible. And the idea of arrested development, the idea of, oh, there is an escape valve on getting older and I can stay young forever and not had to become an adult was extremely attractive to me. And so knowing that this movie is called The Lost Boys, obviously, the idea is they're all probably supposed to be like they're very late teens, like just legal age.
Yeah.
And they all get turned into vampires. So they never have to grow old.
It's great.
Which is basically the same plot as like what, Twilight?
Yeah, man.
But this is all young guys doing it.
All the young dudes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And like I am kind of curious as to what exactly the homoerotic quality is of this. I mean, it's kind of there. Like this is here's the thing. Like as a woman who is attracted to men, I don't find teenage boys attractive at all.
They don't look like Nicolas Cage.
They don't look like Nicolas Cage. Thank you. You know, like not that Nicolas Cage is like the end all and be all, but on this podcast, fine.
It seems like he is.
Well, look.
Nicolas Cage, Sylvester Stallone,
No.
and
Sylvester Stallone.
no, not Sylvester Stallone. Arnold.
Okay, look, in
In
Predator,
Predator,
Arnold
yeah.
looked really good in Predator.
Yeah,
because he wasn't as wide.
Yeah, he didn't look as like hot doggy.
No, he wasn't as roided out in
Yeah.
Predator. He looked good in Predator.
And Roadhouse. What is it?
Patrick Swayze.
The
look,
Sways.
look. Go back and rewatch Roadhouse. You look. I'm not wrong. All right. You know, I'm just saying. You want to do some crunches?
No, I don't. It's dad bod year or decade. Or
I was gonna say it's been more than a year. No.
My time.
No, you're
All
fine.
that pizza's paying off.
Why are you doing centerfolds now?
Money. Money's money. $20 is $20.
Yeah, well, $20 is nothing these days.
Yeah.
We went to a show last night and it was $20 for 2 beers.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So
And we had 4.
Yeah.
Well, 2 each.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not luscious or anything.
Well, speak for yourself. But we gotta crush this economy and start deflation or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna crash whether we want to or not. Let's just sell our house first before that happens, please.
So, vampires.
Vampires. Speaking of capitalism. Yeah. So this is all young guys turned into vampires.
Speaking of capitalism, so when I had COVID and I was locked in that room, so I drew this comic where I turned into a werewolf, and I was thinking about it, and also I'd read, so Annie Muscola, who does
People Are the Enemy.
People Are the Enemy podcast.
And he's
also an author, and he wrote this book, Wolfish Girl. It was about a female werewolf. I was like, oh man, you never hear about female werewolves.
True.
And then I realized like werewolves are always lower class, middle to lower, and then like vampires are always upper class. I get the feeling in this movie maybe not the case.
Oh, I think you're right. I think this is some sort of weird inversion of that. The image in my head is all these like kind of metalhead dudes in leather jackets, but they happen to be vampires. And that is a complete change from your Baroque figure, your Interview with a Vampire, your Lestat, your Dracula. You know, they're always these kind of rich guys. And I think the vampires in this case are much more like street kids.
Do you think there's an Iron Maiden song?
Well, are you tipping your hand here?
I haven't seen it, so I have no idea.
Oh, okay. If not Iron Maiden, there's got to be something kind of like, they look like they would listen to metal.
They do, but that's the thing with Hollywood. You'll see like an image from a movie, you'd be like, oh man, that looks hard. And then you like listen to the movie, it's like Huey Lewis or something.
Yeah, that's true. It's always never as hard as it should be. They never get like real, like you're not going to hear like Slayer. You're not going to hear, you know, Anthrax or whatever.
Whereas like River's Edge, that had.
Well, River's Edge actually had a great soundtrack. They
Yeah.
really nailed it with that one.
It seems like the indie ones, they have the harder stuff.
Yeah. Oh man. You know, it's funny you say that, man. The soundtrack to River's Edge rocks.
Yeah.
That rocks. Say Anything is great. And you don't think of Say Anything as like being hard, but like the soundtrack for that is awesome. I mean, it's, you know, that's got like Fishbone on it. It's got like Soundgarden. It's got the Replacements. Yeah. You know, say what you will about like Cameron Crowe nowadays, but that his early stuff, man, he knew how to build a soundtrack. But anyway, yeah, so I don't know what the soundtrack on this is actually going to be like, because I mean, how many metal albums have a sax solo on it?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That-
like,
yeah.
I'm a little worried.
I assume this film takes place in LA.
So you think it's an urban film?
I don't know why. I honestly don't know why I think that, but I just assume this takes place in LA.
I feel like it takes place in the same town that He-Man takes place in.
Well, that's just somewhere in like the LA suburbs. I mean, literally, it's the LA suburbs. You know,
I feel like it's the same set. I don't know. For some reason, when I think of the He-Man sets, I just think
so. It may as well
that's
take
probably-
place in like Hill Valley or whatever it's called in Back to the Future. You know?
Yeah, we're having this whole thing about Los Angeles that's going to be set in like Pittsburgh or something.
That would be amazing if it was. Actually, like I swear to God, if this film ends up being set in like Cleveland, that would be great. I like seriously, I would love to be wrong about this. I just assume because they all look like kind of grody metalheads that it's set in LA.
Yeah, what if that party scene or whatever with the saxophone guy, that's the origin of the song Cleveland Rocks.
That would be awesome. Seriously, I would love for this to turn out to like be set in like Lincoln, Nebraska.
and there's like a vampire like Drew Carey somewhere in there. All right, so love triangle. Probably.
Are there girls in this movie?
Do you think so? You don't think there's girls in this movie? Vampires. There's always girls.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's true. Like, yes, okay, there are often girls in vampire movies, but
Because it feels like it's a vampire movie mixed with a high school movie.
right.
The first scene will be Kiefer Sutherland banging a trash can saying, "We're New York vampires."
Man, I would. You know what? If I'm that wrong, yeah, I would love that. I would thoroughly enjoy that.
Think they all die? You know, like a classic like Hammer, you know, like the head of the vampires is killed, so it ends.
Because there's no cure for vampirism. You either get to fang another day, or you get staked. So I don't know. Do they band together against like some like chief vampire who's like riding them too hard or what? You know.
Or maybe vampires are just awesome, and it's just celebrating how awesome.
Right?
they are.
Is this just a movie about how awesome it is to be a vampire?
Yeah, vampires.
You know? Is this just a movie about like vampires rock? Don't you wish you were a vampire?
Yeah.
You know. Shall we go watch this and see what exactly this meme of a film is?
Yep.
Voice so clear through broken walls. That scream I hear. Cry, little sister. Come to your brother.
Sometimes an element of this show is me eating crow. Have to admit that I was dumb for avoiding some movies.
Yeah.
And this is one of those movies. This movie's awesome.
It is.
Look, is this as good as An American Werewolf in London, which is what came to mind as I watched it? No.
But did Joel Schumacher kill 2 people through safety violations in a film?
No.
No.
Exactly. No. This movie it knows what it is. It starts off with the Doors.
Yeah.
And really, great choice. If any group of teenage weirdos is going to end up being vampires, you know they're going to be into like the Doors. It totally fits. American Werewolf in London came to mind because this ends up being a horror comedy, and I didn't expect it to be horror comedy.
It kind of hits all the same notes. It's not quite as violent as... Well, it's not as violent as American Werewolf.
No. It's not a tragedy the way that is.
Yeah.
I do think American Werewolf in London is a better film overall. That really leans into the sort of English Gothic and Hammer films and all kinds of stuff. Don't go out into the moors and all that whatnot. This is instead translated to the middle California Bay Area, south of the Bay Area coast. And I'll get into that actually because I find it really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a different vibe. Obviously, it's much more American. But it's not a dissimilar film.
Also has the same hippie parents thing that, like, say, Valley Girl had.
Yeah, that's actually really
seems
interesting.
like a California thing at the time.
Definitely.
Like aging hippie parents.
So yeah, this is much more California. This is much more American, and I don't think it's as tight a movie as American Werewolf. I don't think it's like that's. I almost feel bad comparing the two. To start off with, except I kind of just want to like talk about that since we did watch that movie for the podcast, and I think that is a truly great movie.
But it's the same thing in that it's taking like a classic, like a classic genre film from the past and like perfectly updating it for the 80s.
Yes, yeah, and this really does. The other film that came to mind when we were watching this is River's Edge.
Yep.
And I want to talk about that for a second. So this film is set in the fictional town of Santa Carla.
Yeah.
I had to, actually had to think about that because obviously
it was set in Santa Cruz. I mean, it's filmed in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, and so Santa Carla, the movie was made in Santa Clara County. So obviously they were just playing with the name of Santa Clara.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, Santa Clara.
Well, no, because it was filmed in Santa Cruz,
Right.
the town on the coast there, but the county, and there is like a Santa Clara, California, and like this is all that kind of like it's below the Bay Area, it's below San Francisco, but it's like right, it's literally this is like Silicon Valley area. Palo Alto is the same area, like I guess Stanford, the university is in this area, like.
So is this where like?
This is where actual vampires live.
Yeah, but I mean, this is where like computers were built in garages and
Yes.
that became huge.
Yes. At the same time as what we're watching on screen.
Yeah.
But this is also...
And the same time as a bunch of serial killers, apparently.
There were a bunch of serial killers, including Ed Kemper. So the conceit of the film is that Santa Carla... I got to keep like kind of like reminding myself it's Carla, and I just think of Carla from Cheers.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's exactly where my head went, obviously. But the idea is like, oh my God, we're the murder capital of the country, of the world even.
Which is like spray painted on the sign.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting where it's got that kind of grody 80s, things are falling apart. we're in alternate 1985, or actually it's like regular 1985 Hill Valley of Back to the Future, where everything is just kind of falling apart. Reagan's America, where it's like, we pretend that everything is fine, but it's not. And again, it's like the movie River's Edge, where it's like all of these kind of, lost teens are living in the, it's not exactly the middle of nowhere, but it's not really anywhere important. You're not in the big city. This is not San Francisco.
And apparently earlier versions of the script, it was more obviously a Peter Pan, live forever, be young forever type of.
Oh, but they get there. Like they don't like hit you over the head with the Peter Pan stuff, but it's definitely there.
Like I think a character was called Wendy, and
I think maybe the mother was originally called Wendy, but what do they call her? Lucy. That's right. Yeah. Well, which harkens back to the novel Dracula. Yeah. So this is all set in the area that's now basically Silicon Valley. Nowadays you don't have kind of losers living in like little houses or whatever, or caves, to be honest. Like the cave that all these vampires are living in is probably going for like $1 million now.
So that cave had very Goonies vibes.
Oh, definitely. I think originally it was supposed to be, right?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So originally in the script, like they weren't teenage boys; they were younger.
Oh, yeah.
Like Goonies was a couple years before. It was a huge hit. We even have one of the actors from it in this, Corey Feldman.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do like Goonies but vampires, and playing off of Peter Pan and the idea of these kids become vampires, which means they get to be children forever.
And it was directed by Richard Donner.
Yeah, Donner was going to direct it, which would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Donner's in like Lady Hawk was great.
Yeah.
Some of his films I really like. Superman rocks.
What else? We've done something else of his. What was?
We did do something else.
Was Vibes him or no?
You know what?
I feel like there's some odd movie where like.
Yeah, we were just like, oh, that was him. Ooh, that was not good, and I don't remember what it was now, but and it's escaping me. But like he did Scrooged, obviously, and like he's like Donner can be really good. Yeah. He can also The Toy. Oh God, he could also be terrible.
Oh,
that's right. He did The Toy.
Take back everything we said.
Yeah,
he's a terrible director and
like just
should be shot.
Yes. Well, he's dead now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what we should use guns for, to just shoot corpses.
So the original premise of The Lost Boys was much more they were kids, but when Joel Schumacher, the director, got his hands on the script, he's just like, no, let them be like teens. That's sexier. And it's just like, well, no, I mean, nobody filming this was underaged except for the ones who are portraying what feel like kids and who actually are young. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so we've got both Coreys in this.
Yeah.
This is the meeting of the Coreys.
Man, I was cheering so hard when they met in the
comic book store.
I was like, yes,
finally.
And then suddenly Corey Feldman starts talking as Sylvester Stallone, and it's like, what's going on here?
Oh no, it's so good. it's so perfect. It's so ridiculous. So yeah, the premise is Michael and Sam. Michael is played by
Jason Patric,
yeah. Michael is Jason Patric. Sam is played by Corey Haim. Their mother is played by Diane Wiest. Newly divorced, they are leaving Phoenix and moving to California, and all of a sudden I'm just thinking about the Fablemans, but that's a whole other thing. She's got that same pixie haircut. I'm just saying. She really, I don't know. But anyway, so they're going to go and live with her dad in this Northern California town.
Her dad feels so much like a Stephen King character.
He likes taxidermy.
Yeah.
And he's definitely like booby trapping his house in weird ways.
Also sexually active.
He's very sexually active for an older gentleman. And you know what? This is in the age before Viagra. So you know what? Hats off, buddy. That's great. Good for you, man.
I think in like the later comic books, like that widow that he keeps seeing is like a head vampire.
Oh no.
Yeah. And there's some like theories that he's half vampire.
Yeah,
because he does not seem very surprised that there are vampires.
No, in fact, that's the end of the film. He knows about the vampires. Yeah. Like nobody else knows about the vampires apparently, but he's just like, oh yeah, no, this town sucks because there's vampires.
Yeah.
So they're gonna go and live with Granddad, and this is we call it Northern California, but it's not really northern. It's more like the middle north, if you know what I mean. It's below the Bay Area.
You know what this also reminds me of?
What?
Karate Kid. Yeah, like it has that kind of lower middle classness.
Although Grandpa's house is not lower middle class.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, you get the sense that he may have built that house.
Yeah.
It's got that little bit of a lodge feel to it.
It has a lot of a Ron Swanson vibe to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Like there's like his money is buried somewhere in there. He doesn't go to a bank.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, Granddad's got strong libertarian
Yeah,
vibes.
he's got gold doubloons. Hey, got from a monastery.
The town that they're moving to, and again, it was filmed in like Santa Cruz, but it's got a boardwalk. It's a beach town, and I do like the kind of beach vibes at the beginning. I honestly got like that whole sequence. I mean, that could have been Wildwood, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's that same sort of thing. Even when they called it a boardwalk, and I thought, wait, I thought that was an East Coast thing. I was really surprised that they called it a boardwalk.
But it's
oh my God! Imagine like vampires in like Wildwood.
yeah.
Or Seaside Heights. Well, I mean, okay, they
or
they made the
vampires
Jersey
in
Shore, but-
the Pine Barrens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like,
People not from this area, Pine Barrens is a whole nother thing.
oh my God, you guys don't understand what the Pine Barrens are. They are so weird. Like, okay,
It's like the Here Be Dragons part of our.
it totally is.
our
And like, I used to go camping with a bunch of druids in like the Pine Barrens, and that's like kind of a normal thing that happens there.
there are places like that in Pennsylvania, like
Yeah.
out west.
No,
This is like right in the middle of the megapolis.
that's the
There's
thing.
this-
What's weird about the Pine Barrens, I realize this has not much to do with the movie, but what's weird about the Pine Barrens is it is this kind of swampy pine tree forested area. It's extremely rural. There are farms down there, but you have to understand this is also like not that far from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
In Camden, you've got like Philadelphia and Camden and
Trenton.
like Trenton, all of that on one side, and then you've got like the Jersey Shore on the other side, which is all just tourists everywhere. So you've got and like there's strip malls that kind of like ring it, but it's this primeval kind of area,
Yeah.
and it's very strange down there.
And it's ruled by the devil.
And like, there are people who like live there normally, and like they get called pineys and whatever. And we've had one on our show. I don't know. It's just a fascinating area. It's cool. It's spooky, but I'm sure it's very normal if you live there. Look, I say that because I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and people think that's a weird place because, it was normal to go to the farmer's market where there were the Amish and also people selling stuff that, frankly, I don't want to talk about on the podcast. Yeah.
You can guess.
Just look, it's called Zerns. It's not there anymore. And again, it's rural Pennsylvania. I think we all know where I'm going with this. It wasn't that bad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So watching this movie,
Had some serious shoe fly pie.
yeah, actually, it was very good. And let me tell you, man, the kibasi up there. Anyway, so watching this, like the vibe of this shore town made a lot of sense to me, even though it's on the West Coast.
It just feels like north of L.A., like it's just a different vibe up there.
Oh, it's a completely different kind. Well, and we've been there. I mean, and you used to live in LA, and you know what that's like. And so,
No, I know what L.A. is like.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know anything about the rest of California.
No. But that's what
at
I'm
all.
saying is you know what LA is
Yeah.
like. And so when you say it's a different vibe up there.
It's like an alien nation to me. It may as well be Mars.
But what's also interesting to me is, I said earlier, there are actually vampires out there because this is the same area as like Palo Alto. This is the area of Stanford. This is the area that gave us people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And, why is the world as bad as it is?
Well, Peter Thiel seems more vampire-y than the others.
Well, literally, the man gets injected with the blood of the youth. I mean, that's literally what a vampire is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite as sexy as these vampires, though.
No, I'm amused by the fact that this is an area that attracted serial killers. This is just like south of where the Zodiac Killer was. I brought up Ed Kemper, and there were a couple other serial killers. So there actually were like a lot of murders in this area back in the 70s and 80s. The movie River's Edge is also based on a murder that happened in this area in Milpitas, which is like not that far from where this movie was made. By the way, if you haven't listened to our episode on River's Edge or watched the film, go watch it. It's a great movie. It really is. It's a fascinating film. And also, if you have not read, like once you've done that, go and read John Darnielle's novel Devil House, which I found fascinating. Which is also playing off of the same sort of area and murder vibes, but it's also kind of a critique of true crime. And it's oh my God, that book is so good.
Or just watch his Poker Face episode.
Yeah, that was good too, man. Yeah, I dug
Just
that.
watch Poker Face.
Or just watch Poker Face.
I love that show.
Yeah, that show's great. I can't wait for another season. So, we're talking a lot.
Yeah. Have we talked about the movie? Oh,
A
by the
little
way.
bit. Yeah, by the way, there's a movie here. And I did not go into this knowing that this was also a comedy.
Yeah.
Now, the comedy, to some extent, is coming from the Frog Brothers.
Yeah.
You've got basically like two groups of kids, right?
The Freaks and the Geeks.
Yes. Literally. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, that's what it is.
It really
that's
is.
totally what it is. Okay.
We're Freaks and Geeks fans.
Huge
so.
fans. It's my favorite TV show of all time. It really is. It's only 17 episodes, and I've watched them all multiple times. It is real comfort food for me. But so you've got your freaks, and those are the Lost Boys, the vampires, headed by Kiefer Sutherland. They have brought Michael into their band. They all look like kind of these metalhead kids who hang around the boardwalk and menace people, and of course they will, when they have cover or whatever, like they will go in and swoop in and eat people.
In Twilight terms, they are not vegetarians.
Man, I almost swore. I do not bring up Twilight here, man. Come on.
How do you talk about young vampires without
Well,
talking about Twilight?
Because this is all about gay young vampires.
Yeah, I'm just saying that Twilight is heavily influenced by this movie.
I buy it. I buy it. Yeah. But that movie's lame. Those movies are terrible. This movie rocks.
All right.
There's a huge difference. This movie's got Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure
Yeah.
and Bogus Journey.
He looks
And they meet
ridiculous.
the end. Oh my God. Look, we didn't even get into everybody's hair in this yet. Their hair is incredible.
I mean, he's great, but
No,
he
no,
looks,
I love him in this. Alex Winter.
Marco is
yeah.
his character, I think.
It's not as big a role as Kiefer Sutherland, but he is very much one of the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And I dig him in this. It was really funny when I saw him on screen. I went, "Oh my God, it's Bill!" Yeah, I got very excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can watch this, and then you watch River's Edge, and then you know as a back to back, and that'll supplant your Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure vibes.
Or watch Strangers on a Train and then watch this right after. Sorry, I
Why?
because I love like merry-go-round scenes.
Oh, there is a merry-go-round
And
scene in
there's
this.
a
You're
famous
right.
one at the end of that.
Of
and then-
Strangers on a Train. You're right, and this does open with a merry-go-round scene. You know what? You're right. I at first I was completely baffled, like what in the world are you talking about? But you're right. This does open with, again, because it's the boardwalk and there are amusement parks. These kids, these vampires are all kind of like weaving in and out of a merry-go-round. And it's very menacing. And it's great.
Yeah.
But what's great is they just seem like the kind of like freaks who would menace people in general.
Yeah, they seem like teenagers.
They're just teenagers. They're townies. So anyway, like Michael kind of falls in with them because he falls for the one girl who's with them.
Yeah.
Right. So they have one girl who kind of hangs out with the vampires, and her name is Star. I know she's hanging out with them, and at first you're like, is she like one of their girlfriends? And you quickly get the feeling like, no, she's definitely not one of their girlfriends.
You get the feeling that she's just bait to lure a straight guy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what she is.
Yeah.
It's subtext in that because it is never like actually literally spelled out, but there is a whole like kind of homoerotic bonding thing going on with these young guys who are vampires, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that we ever actually see like nobody kisses, nobody's like having gay sex with each other or anything like that. So Michael gets recruited, through Star into hanging out with these guys. And it's like kind of a one-upsmanship of Dare's almost. Like he follows them to this train trestle and walks out with them, and then they all like kind of drop through the trestle.
Well, actually, first there's a motorcycle thing where they stop at the cliff.
That's true.
Which is a very obvious Rebel Without a Cause callback thing, and you definitely get a Rebel Without a Cause vibe.
Oh yeah. Speaking of
Especially
homoerotic,
with David.
Yeah.
Like he's why can't we just be a family type of thing?
You know what? I hadn't even thought about Rebel Without a Cause, but you're absolutely right. That is definitely what this movie is drawing on.
Yeah.
He follows them back to the cave that they all live in. It's almost like if you were a kid and you found a pirate cove.
Yeah.
And there's a giant poster of Jim Morrison, because of course there is.
Of course there is.
Absolutely. No, you know what? No, and I'm not being sarcastic. Like that absolutely fits.
Nobody's listening to the Velvet Underground in here.
The Velvet Underground would actually fit a vampire way better.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're listening to the Doors, but the Doors were more popular.
It's a California thing.
It is such a California thing. I don't understand. I don't know. I know they're vampires, but my first thought wasn't, well, of course it's a cave. They're bats. But we do later see them hanging upside down as they sleep. It's just like, oh, that's right. They're bats.
They got freaky feet, man.
Yeah.
You see his feet there?
You do see their feet for like a moment.
Yeah.
Can we just for a moment talk about the prosthetics?
Yeah.
I dig them.
Yeah.
They're great. They don't use them all the time in this movie. A lot of the times these guys look normal, but when they bring out the prosthetics, especially when they're in full vampire mode, it looks good, man.
I think Buffy took a lot from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Buffy totally took from this, and all to the best. But
it's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. But these are definitely Buffy the Vampire Slayer type of vampires in terms of like the way they look, and it looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole scene of one of the guys. I think it's actually Alex Winter comes in with food. The Chinese takeout.
Yeah.
So they open up their things and they start playing mind tricks on Michael. Here, have the rice. By the way, it's maggots. And so he opens up and it looks like maggots. And he throws it on the ground. And of course, it's rice. It's not rice. Here, no, have the noodles then. And it's worms. Well, it's not, of course, and it turns out it's just noodles. And so they're playing all these tricks and like, I'm making you see things that aren't there, right?
I love Kiefer's definitely kind of mean and bullying, but at the same time,
he's negging him.
At the same time, like he's kind of sweet still.
Well, that's what I mean. He's negging him the whole time. That's what he's doing. It's that technique of I'm gonna like kind of be mean to you, but in a way that you end up finding enticing and you want to prove yourself to me. His whole technique is straight out of like the player's handbook.
Yeah.
So then the third time, he gives him a bottle of wine and says, well, it's blood. It's our blood. Because Michael's now been trained to be like, okay, it's not really maggots. It's rice. It's not really worms. It's noodles. It's not really going to be blood. It's just wine. So he drinks it. But of course, it turns out it is blood.
That's when Star says you don't have to.
Right.
But she's not very convincing.
No. And of course he does it. Like, I don't know why he doesn't ever stop himself and say, are you like hypnotizing me? What's going on here? And now he's a half vampire.
Yeah.
I would love to know what's the difference between a half vampire and a full vampire? Like
killing.
Huh?
Killing.
Is it the killing?
Yeah.
You have to actually kill a person to be a full vampire? Fair enough.
I think the Frog Brothers say that.
Oh, I must have missed that part.
Yeah.
And not because I wasn't paying attention, because believe me, I was definitely paying attention to this movie. This movie rocked. There's a lot of stuff kind of like getting thrown at you through the movie.
It's kind of cool. The Frog Brothers, so like they're in this comic book store.
Well, because we have a whole other storyline here.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to like kind of establish the deal with Michael. He's the older brother because you have the younger brother, Sam.
Yeah.
Played by Corey Haim.
Yep.
And his whole thing is, so, he's the younger brother. He's probably in his, early to mid-teens. You get the feeling that Michael's supposed to be probably 18.
Yeah.
Right? So Sam is probably 14, 15. Although I think Corey Haim was probably 16 when they filmed this, because I know Corey Feldman was at least 16.
Yeah.
It's funny because you get the feeling like their characters are supposed to be young, but it kind of brings home like, oh, wow, they were 16. You kind of forget how young actual teenagers are. Because like none of the guys playing the Lost Boys are young at the time. They're all in their 20s. There are reasons to do that, but it's also kind of interesting then when you have people who are the right age as a teenager and watching them on screen, you think they're way younger, but they're not.
Yeah.
It's just that kids are younger longer than you think.
Yeah.
But so you have this whole other storyline that, not I shouldn't even say storyline, but because they do run like against each other, but you have like this whole other thing going on with Sam, and he runs into the Frog Brothers, who are these two kids who are running the comic book store for their parents. So you only ever see them kind of like, dazing on a couch in the comic book store. Yeah. These are obviously like the hippie parents.
In fact, I think they're just sleeping.
No, they're sleeping the whole
I don't think
time.
we ever see them.
I swear to God, one of them is dressed like Jodorowsky in The Holy Mountain. Like he is. He's got like the white outfit and the hat and everything.
Wow.
Like their parents are just like passed out the whole time. And they're kind of running the comic book store. And they're the one who are saying to Sam, like, you have to know about vampires. You have to know about all this stuff.
And they trust him because, like, he knows all of the DC lore and stuff, critiquing, like, where they're putting issues and that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's saying, like, you can't have Superman 77 over here. They don't know about Red Kryptonite yet. You can't, I'm looking for this particular Batman comic. And, of course, Joel Schumacher would go on and direct, like, a couple of the Batman films. Yeah. And, I mean, look, I'm not saying those Batman films are the best. They're not. I don't know. I mean, I certainly remember them in a way that, look, I'm not saying we need to have a critical reappraisal of Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I'm not saying they're good, but good. They have a certain camp quality. Look. I'm not saying I want to go back and watch Jim Carrey's performance as the Riddler because, yes, it is annoying. Yeah. But I don't know, man. I've seen much worse. So we have this other, storyline of Sam making friends with the Frog Brothers, one of which, of course, is Corey Feldman. That's kind of where a lot of the comedy comes from in this movie. And also there's sort of a, it's implied that Sam is probably gay. Like all of his posters are like shirtless stars like Rob Lowe and whatnot.
Well, I think there's a Molly Ringwald one.
Oh, there's a huge Molly Ringwald just of like her face though.
As people have said, like in the closet, there's a Rob Lowe poster.
Right. Yes, exactly. So. And I love the idea. No, but here's the thing. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
If Sam is actually like, because he's the hero of the film. He really is.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like the one that we're watching the movie through even more than Michael.
Yeah.
If Sam is sort of the hero of the movie, well, he gets together with the Frog Brothers, and they are trying to protect his mother because they decide that her boss, who runs the video store, played by Ed Herman, is maybe the head vampire. Which, spoiler alert, actually he is.
Yeah.
But because he's the head vampire, he's way smarter than everybody. It's not Kiefer Sutherland.
I forget how they figured that out.
Well, it's not till the end of the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, like I forget why they started testing him in the first place.
He kept odd hours.
Right.
Because he runs the video store, he doesn't come in until like a certain time of night, which makes sense if you're running a video store because people aren't renting at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So it's like they had
vampires have odd hours and they have bad breath.
Right.
Which is a common thing they keep bringing up.
Edward Herman's character Max has that. They assume that he is the head vampire, and of course it turns out that they're right. We find out at the end of the film. But the idea that Sam is actually kind of the hero of the film and he's gay, and the film doesn't really make anything of that, but it just implies that. I think that's kind of interesting. Like you couldn't really get away with it in the 80s as much as maybe you would want to. But I think that's a really neat idea. Especially because, if you just made the vampires gay, well, then you have
the typical.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, they're predators.
Yeah.
But if you make also Sam gay, that's much more interesting.
Right. I get the feeling he probably wanted to make it more obvious, and the studio.
Well, it sounds like, they kind of like made him pull back on some stuff.
Yeah.
So Diane Weiss, she works at the video store, and Max, her boss, played by Edward Herman, decides to start dating her. And she's divorced. She's like, yeah, why not? I'm back in this town and whatnot. And we have a lot of their kind of like dating stuff. And like the film is pretty good at like putting you off the scent, I think, for a while, at least if you've never seen it before.
It kind of makes him to be like kind of square.
Yeah, he's just a nerd.
Like a bit like actually another Goonies connection, a bit like Sean Astin in Stranger Things.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. I can totally see that. Yeah, it's that kind of thing where he's just like this guy who runs the video store, and he's not necessarily nice to the Lost Boys when they come in and start harassing people at the video store. He's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
So that when you get to the end of the film, it turns out like, oh, they were all kind of working for him. it's a surprising moment.
Yeah, and there's a scene where he's going back to his house, and it seems like he got attacked.
And it's all misdirection on the part of the
Yeah.
film. It's really it's nicely done. So that like when we got to the end of the film, like okay, so let's talk about that for a second. The whole head vampire thing, like because they bring up a couple times, like you have to kill the head vampire to kill the other vampires and to turn the half vampires back into regular people.
Right.
And I can't remember. Some of that, I guess, is actually out of the original Dracula novel. The idea of the head, like Dracula's the head vampire, and if you kill him, then you kill his like wives or whatever, and all this stuff. Although it's been a very long time since I read any of Dracula, and like I have just the barest memory, and I'm actually drawing like my mind is actually trying to go back to the movie, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula more than it is the book.
But that's there's been so many Dracula.
There's
films.
been so much
There's been
Dracula.
Hammer films. There's
Yeah.
been like copies of those. There's been there's blaxploitation.
Yeah.
Like Blackula and stuff, and so like the lore has slightly changed with each one. So
Right.
it's like you can kind of pick and choose what.
And so here's the thing. They kept bringing up the head vampire, and so my mind, I was trying to remember like Dracula, but I also kept thinking about The Simpsons, specifically their parody of of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula in the Treehouse of Horror,
Yeah.
which I've watched so many times. I've watched that particular Treehouse of Horror a lot, and so if you remember, at the end they go and they kill Mr. Burns. They drive a stake through his heart, thinking if we kill the head vampire, that'll...
Oh, that's right.
And it turns out Marge is the head vampire the whole time. Right? So I kept waiting to find out that Star, the girl, was the head vampire. I did not expect it to be Max. I really thought it was we were gonna turn around because they start, finally like the vampires all because Michael doesn't want to be a vampire and he tries to get away from them and stuff, Because he doesn't go through with a kill.
Yeah.
They lure him out one time and a bunch of guys we have a bonfire on the beach and they're all dancing around to Walk This Way of all things. Which
Apparently that was a rival gang called
was this the Surf Nazis?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know what was
That's I don't think it's said in the film.
Right.
But it apparently
I know there's a terrible B movie called Surf Nazis Must Die or something that was around the same time period.
Yeah.
That I would love to cover just because it's just something I vaguely remember and I've never actually seen. But yeah, so there is a whole scene earlier in the film where they go and attack these dudes and Michael holds back. He doesn't want to go through with it. So yeah, you want to jump back to the trestle for a second? So part of the initiation, the whole bonding thing is this trestle scene. That made a real impression on you.
Well, for one thing, it's Stand By Me, and
yeah, which Kiefer Sutherland was in, which Corey Feldman was in.
Yeah.
Same time. In fact, same year, I think, or no, year before.
So we had a trestle near where I grew up in Flowertown,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. It's kind of an initiation thing to walk across a trestle. I don't know if I walked across one with a train coming.
I don't know that the trains were still running on that trestle. Were they?
Well, there's other trestles around.
Yeah, that's right. You have a lot of trestles that go through Flowertown.
Those always leave an impression on me because it's such a striking image, and
it definitely goes back to your own childhood. I mean, and you were a teenager at the same time that this movie was out, so it's the same sort of time period.
I'm actually the same age as the Coreys, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But so what they do on the trestle is it's not just that they walk across the trestle, which is a working, train line, but then they all drop through and start hanging from the underside of the trestle.
Yeah.
And then one by one, they start dropping into the fog. We assume they're going to just splat on the ground and die. But you hear their voices afterwards, and it's just
Yeah.
oh, that's okay. They're vampires. We know that they're it's fine. They're flying.
Yeah.
Whatever. They're flying in the fog. So Michael, he's the last one hanging there, and he just decides to finally leave go, which is interesting. It's that thing where guys will make that leap into I'm going into the unknown, and I'm just gonna follow these dudes because they're cooler than me, and I want to be like them, and I want to be with them, and so I'm gonna leave go and do this thing that I think could kill me. I don't know if is it trust? Is it a desire to be like them?
Well, also, it looked like he was losing his grip, too.
Well, okay, fine. Yeah, add some logic to it, whatever. But so he goes off into the fog.
And this fall, it's like a descent into hell. He's like yelling and it's and
he's screaming, but then
Yeah.
he wakes up in his bed. Was this real? Whatever. I like the way that the film kind of plays with his own perception of like time skips and like he starts sleeping all day and not waking up until late in the afternoon.
wearing sunglasses.
Yeah, he's practically wearing sunglasses at night.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so the film ends up coming to a head where, Michael's just like, I don't want to actually engage in killing. And Sam is like, oh no, my brother is a vampire. What do I do with him? And, the Frog Brothers tell him, well, but if you kill the head vampire, then you can turn your brother back to normal. He's only a half vampire. Talked about like the Frog Brothers thought that like Max was a head vampire and they try to test him when he comes over for dinner and, by giving him lots of garlic and all other stuff. And things like that, and spilling water on him and whatnot, and nothing works. And the film is very clever because nothing works because they invited him into the house, they pointed out
It was actually Michael. Michael is
Yeah.
leaving, and he stops Michael and says, "Michael, you are the man of the house. You can invite me in. I won't come in until you invite me in." Like he says it so formally.
Yeah.
And
And because like you don't really you assume that the kids are wrong for thinking that he's the head vampire. You don't think that much of it, or I didn't as I was watching this.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just kind of a funny inversion of the trope of you have to invite a vampire in. But no, he really is the vampire.
Yeah.
And we find that out at the end of the film. So, because he came in and because he was invited in. And later he explains, when they find out he is the head vampire, but we fed you garlic. We did all these things to you and nothing happened to you. And he's like, yeah, but because you invited me in, I had power over the situation. You lost your power. So those tricks didn't work on me.
They put a mirror up to him, and
it was fine. And you could see him in the mirror, and none of these things worked on him because he had been invited in, because he was in charge of the situation. I thought that was a neat addition to vampire lore. I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah.
So jump to the end of the film because Michael wants out. Like the boys are like, nope, you're one of us. You can't get out now. And by now, like him and Star have hooked up and whatnot. And so I guess the idea is like, he's in love with her. And
Yeah, like Joel Schumacher's like, I guess I gotta do that.
it's pretty perfunctory, man. and it didn't have to be there. Like Star, I mean, she's fine, but she doesn't need to be in this film. But I'm sure that Hollywood's just kind of like, we can't make this too gay. So the vampires all show up at Grandpa's house where they're all living. It's just a mess. The house gets torn apart. The one guy gets thrown into a bathtub full of holy water
and garlic.
And his body just like dissolves into it, like in a pretty wonderfully gruesome scene. Remains kind of go into the pipes of the house and just start blowing things.
Is what, Death by Stereo?
Oh, that's right. They shoot a bow and arrow at this one dude, and he gets like stuck into the stereo, and it just like electrocutes him. Like all the deaths are pretty dramatic and over the top, and it's really wonderful. I really love all the deaths in this. You have this wonderful like kind of Northern California lodge of a house, and it's just slowly getting destroyed by fighting vampires.
Yeah.
To the point where Grandpa's taxidermy hobby comes into play. Kiefer Sutherland gets impaled on an impala, I think.
Yeah.
Like the antlers of an impala, which sure. Let's just go for that pun. That's terrible when you think about it, but it looks great. He just dies on these horns. Which, when you think about it, that's not wood.
Yeah, I know.
And I think in like sequels that they've made or comic books, like he's not actually dead. But I'm gonna like, as far as I'm concerned, he's dead.
Yeah.
Like for the purposes of this film, I don't care what happens later.
So the film they planned as a sequel, Joel Schumacher planned, was going to be a rival gang of girl vampires.
That would have rocked.
And
would it be like the Leslies and the Warriors?
I don't know, but David is alive.
Oh, okay.
Probably because of that out. Because
Okay.
you don't see him disappear
No,
or anything.
he doesn't.
Like, I don't think you see blood or anything. He's just kind of...
No, the movie kind of ends pretty quickly because they kill David, who is Kiefer Sutherland, and like that doesn't like stop everything. People don't revert to like Michael doesn't become a human again, and everybody's just like, why didn't that work? It should work. And that's when Max says, yeah, it's because I'm the head vampire.
Yeah.
This whole time it's been me, your boss. And I decided that, my lost boys needed a mother. So that's why I was trying to like hook up with Diane Wiest. And so it's got that whole like Max turns out to be like the Peter Pan figure. And
is he Peter Pan or is he Captain Hook?
well, Like, if you wanted to really get into like the psychology of Peter Pan,
Yeah.
the fact that Captain Hook on stage is always played by the same guy who is the father of the Darling children. Yeah, like initially that was just because like whoever was, I guess, Mr. Darling was originally sick, and like they just had to have somebody double up. But the fact that Captain Hook is always played by the same guy who plays like the children's father, I think is an interesting psychological thing.
Yeah.
So that then you get into is Peter Pan and Captain Hook, like, are they kind of the same guy in certain ways? I think there is something to that. You can get, I mean, I've read treatments on Peter Pan and sequels and whatnot that play with that idea. The relationship between Pan and Hook.
I'm sure when they were writing the script, they were thinking about it a lot.
Well, they probably were thinking about stuff like that,
Yeah, that's the surprising thing. I think this script is pretty tight.
Yeah.
This and American Werewolf remind me of Kolchak a lot.
Okay.
And that, like, what I always loved about Kolchak is that it just accepted all past lore about vampires, about werewolves, about creeping like
ghouls
and mummies, and they just did episodes with, here's the episode with the vampire, here's the episode with the werewolf on the ship and all. But this feels like just steeped in vampire lore, but not hitting you over the head with it.
Max confesses to being the head vampire. I don't even know.
Yeah.
He doesn't confess. He brags that he's the head vampire. And, guess what, Diane Wiest? You're going to now be the mother of, like, a new brood of vampires.
He has Sam's head in a headlock.
Yeah, that's right. He's, like, threatening Sam at the time.
So she's like, okay, I'll whatever.
I kind of have to, acquiesce to this in order to save my son's life.
Yeah. Grandpa drives through.
who has been kind of MIA for the last half hour or so.
Well, they specifically send him away.
Yeah.
With a fake call to the widow. We see him, like, I guess he realizes, vampires are coming around. And he is actually putting post stakes onto his Jeep.
That's right. I guess earlier in the film, he puts like a bunch of stakes onto his Jeep. And like, you don't think much of it at the time because it's just like he's such a wacky grandpa. He's into taxidermy. You're just like, oh, I guess did weird things to his car, whatever. So he drives like into the building and he stakes Max.
Yeah.
Like maximum damage.
Fails all his saving throws.
I guess Grandpa's last line is something to the effect of, the only problem with this town is it's full of vampires.
Yeah, I hate these damn vampires.
And it turns out like he knew the whole time.
Yeah.
He knew the whole time that there were vampires everywhere. He knew that there were vampires.
And the thing is, he kept putting these taxidermied animals next to Sam's bed. I kept thinking that this was going to come up to be a plot point, that like this was somehow protecting Sam from vampires, but
no, he's just weird.
Yeah.
He's just a weirdo.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason he puts these dead animals around Sam's bed. He's just weird. So yeah, this movie's great.
It's a lot of fun.
I totally get why people enjoy it. Like the script is fun. Like the performances are fun.
I was just as pretentious as you when it came out. Like
I mean, to be fair, when it came out, I was
but
like
I mean, when you got older.
Yeah, when I got older, and all of my friends were like into movies like this, and I was just like, ugh, I'm not going to watch that. That's
like it just seemed
trash.
like this MTV thing.
Yeah.
That, like all the kids liked it. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
That's not for me. And so I avoided it for years. And we've been getting more and more into campy stuff recently. And like, so when I was looking for samples for our theme song, I scoured this film. Like, I just looked at tons and tons of clips, and I could tell it's a great film. Like, all the lines were great, but I was like, everything was just too long to fit into the song.
Okay. Okay.
I really wanted, it was like the first thing I looked for, really.
Really?
Yeah, like for some reason I was focused on this film, and so like I knew a lot of these scenes because I'd been looking through YouTube clips.
I had no idea about any of this.
Yeah.
It may not have made its way into the theme song, but this movie was awesome.
Yeah.
I totally get why people like this movie. I would definitely watch it again. It was a blast.
Who would you say the best actor?
Yeah, I might actually go with Kiefer Sutherland.
I agree. I love
he's
him
great
in this. Like there's like a subtlety to like he's not just a bully,
No, he's not. There's something more interesting going on with him. To what extent is he being manipulated by Max? To what extent have all of these kids been like drawn in by this older dude who's a creep?
Yeah.
That you don't realize that at first. And, like that whole idea of we're going to get to stay older teenagers for the rest of our lives and live this like romantic bohemian, we live in a cave, like
like you were saying that American Werewolf is like a tragedy and stuff. like he seems like this kind of sad, lonely figure.
Yeah.
You know, but like it just seems like there's this.
Yeah, imagine like, just like kind of your local dirtbag was turned into like an actual monster.
Yeah.
And there's something tragic in that actually, whereas he could have just been like a dude, but now he's a vampire.
Yeah.
And he can't be a normal person anymore. So he has to seek out victims and kill them. And like they take glee in it, but you wonder like, could this person have had a different path?
And plus, we don't know how long they've been vampires. by
No,
now.
that's the thing. We have no idea how old they are.
And nothing. Like I get the feeling Max. It wouldn't surprise me if he was like around it when that 1906.
Right, because
earthquake hit.
they bring up the earthquake.
And he just seems like an old-fashioned guy.
Even though like he's dressed very new wave and stuff like that. I mean, he's not a guy who's completely out of step or anything. And he runs a video store, and so he's definitely up on pop culture. But I do I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Could this guy be like hundreds of years old? We don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't need lore. I don't need people to like backfill the information. I don't actually want to know how old these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
I like the ambiguity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as like the best actor in this, man, Kiefer Sutherland I think is actually great in this.
Yeah.
I really do.
But everyone else is
No, everybody else is great too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Corey Haim is actually really good in this, because he's a kid. He feels like a kid in this, but he feels, he's really fun.
Apparently they partied a lot on this film.
Well, yeah.
Like not the Coreys. I guess they like.
Well,
they,
no, I mean
since
Corey
they were
Feldman
younger.
had a pretty heavy cocaine habit at 16. I mean,
Yeah.
and like he's had a really rough life. I mean, I like his kind of like implied accusations about his life growing up in Hollywood. I have a feeling he's very right
Yeah.
about things that have happened to him.
But Alex Winters has said, that was an insane time.
I'll bet it was. Well,
Because they
look,
were like rock stars in this little town. So
yeah,
Yeah.
they're filming. It's Hollywood. They're filming a movie in this little town in Northern California.
Yeah.
You know.
Joel Schumacher doesn't seem like a rein them in type of person.
No. So that was The Lost Boys, starring Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Diane Wiest, Edward Herrmann, Kiefer Sutherland. Jamie Gertz was star, Corey Feldman, Jameson Newlander, Alex Winter. Chance Michael Corbett was Laddie, the little kid who they end up saving and stuff. And like this movie.
Who was the sax guy?
Oh my God! We didn't even talk about like because that's a famous like just it shows up on Twitter a lot or whatever. Like there is a scene in the beginning of the film. I don't remember like he is like a musician or something like the sax guy, but they like there is this whole like thing where there's like a big beach party, and a guy is performing and he's all muscled and oily and
It's
holding a
amazing.
saxophone and
This is where Michael sees Star.
yeah.
And like I love the camera work for here because like here's this huge crowd and you see them just looking at each other and it's just framed so well. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is really well done actually.
Apparently he played with Tina Turner. He was
Right.
part of her like private dancer comeback tour and that kind of thing. So
Directed by Joel Schumacher, and boy was it ever.
it sure was.
Yeah. So you can follow us on social media. We are Mary VS Movies on Twitter. We are Mary VS Movies on Instagram. We are Mary VS Movies at mas.to on Mastodon. We are Mary versus the Movies on Tumblr. And I don't know. We'll get a website together when I know. I keep saying that. Like I bought a domain and everything. I just haven't had the chance to like finish building the website. It's terrible. And as we do more episodes, I'm like running like beyond what I've already worked on. So I'm really annoyed by that. But like I almost want to take like 3 weeks off on the podcast just so I can catch up in the coding. But I don't want to like not produce podcasts. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And we have a Patreon, of course, so that you can help support the show. As you know, we are not ad supported. We basically just doing this in our home office and we don't get any money for this otherwise. We spend money on the server, we spend money on that website that I haven't built. We even bought a Zoom account so that we could actually like interview people for the show, which we're going to do more of those soon.
Very soon.
Very soon. In fact, like try the next episode. In fact, the show costs money. And so, if you want to sign up for the Patreon to help support us, that would be awesome. But in response for doing that, we have a second podcast called Hollywood Avalon, where we watch films of an Arthurian theme. So, and then just talk about them the way that we talk about films on this show. So, the first episode was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The second episode was First Night. And we that movie sucks. And then the third movie, it really sucks. And then the third movie we watched was, that just came out was Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, which is, it's whatever, it's fine.
It has one good scene.
It does have one good scene. And so, if you sign up for our Patreon, we will send you buttons and stickers and all sorts of fun stuff. But you will also get access to this secondary podcast where we watch these movies.
And you will get to tap into Mary's boundless information on Arthurian legend.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to be a weirdo to want to listen to me talk about, Arthurian stuff, but
I'm a weirdo.
Buddy, you married me.
Yeah.
So, we have the Patreon. So, feel free to sign up for that. And
It's exciting, because people know about the Knights of the Round Table and stuff, but there's a lot.
Oh my God,
to
there's
it.
so much more stuff. I have so many books on this.
Parzival. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you can get into all kinds of stuff. We recently did King Arthur. We recently did Connecticut Yankee, and I talked about comparing that to Twain's novel that I just recently reread and stuff. And I really like doing that show. And I want to thank everybody who has signed up for the Patreon. We really appreciate it, and you're helping to support the show. But also, you do get this second podcast, which is great.
Yeah.
We are available on all of the major platforms. By the way, we are on Apple Podcasts, where you can rate and review us, and we would really appreciate it if you did, because it helps us get a little bit more visibility. You can rate and review us on Spotify. And on Stitcher, I don't think you rate and review. You just kind of get to listen to it. Let's see. We're also on Google Play, or whatever it's called. Google Music. I don't know. Whatever the Google system is. And let's see. You can get us through Overcast or any of the major platforms. You can go to Libsyn and get our RSS feed and just plug that into whatever your podcatcher of choice is and download however you want. So, next week. Oh boy, next week is a really big deal.
It's 100.
Next week is episode 100. We will make it into triple digits, a thing that I did not expect to ever happen.
Oh.
We have a special guest. We're doing shall we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
All right. So next week, the movie will be Highlander,
Yay.
which we picked because that's how this whole podcast started. A couple years ago, I called into the Best Show with Tom Sharpling. They had a topic for the night: describe a movie you've never seen, and I did, and it was Highlander. And it turns out that
that was not your plan.
No, I don't.
I remember you had talked about this other movie, and then suddenly you pulled out Highlander.
I don't know why I pulled out Highlander, but I did. I called into the Best Show, and I tried describing Highlander from what I thought the movie was about. And when I did that, Jason Gore, who is one of the producers of the show, started talking about during my call about how he loves Highlander, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. So I thought, well, when we get to episode 100, if we ever hit episode 100, I wanted to talk about Highlander, and I thought it would be cool to have Jason on.
Yeah.
And guess what? Jason said yes. So our next episode, we have a special guest. It'll be Jason Gore of the Best Show, of the other podcast, 108.9 The Hawk, which he does with Jeff Garlock, which is a great show. And so he was kind enough to come on to our podcast and talk about the movie Highlander. We had a great time. It's going to be a great episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And so that is our next episode. And
it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm so excited that we made it to episode 100. And
I almost fell on my chair at one point.
Yeah, you did. You were laughing real hard. Yeah, it was a lot of fun talking to Jason. We had a great time. So, until next time.
Flies and the undead go together like bullets and guns.